Hey there and welcome to Matt's Garage. Well, I'm just going to be replacing the front CV axles on this 1999 Ford Expedition. I've actually got some used replacements here. So first up, we're just going to jack up the vehicle and get the wheel off. You want to probably break loose the center nut first, unless you have a really powerful impact. Then you can wait till later. I'm actually going to break that loose first. So that's 1 3/8, I believe. My 1 3/8 will fit on there anyways, and then 19mm on the wheel nuts. And then I'll show you the next step when we get there. So somebody put that on wrong. They didn't have this clocked right to line up with the hole, so I put a little oil on these threads. And then for extra security, I'll just put the wheel underneath the vehicle. Okay folks, here's what we're looking at. Basically, this axle should be free in here. I just have to give it a little tap. Should come right out of there. And then you can see there's those 12.12mm bolts like you would have in a Ford drive shaft. I just got to get those out, which I believe I can accomplish with my impact. Okay guys, so it's about half an hour later because I had to go build a socket. I didn't have a 12.12mm, but now I do. Just weld at the end of a ring wrench to an old socket. I'll just show you a little trick for jamming the brake rotor. You just put an extension in one of the vent holes here, and you can lock it on either side of the caliper bracket. So my impact's not very strong, and through that 3/8 extension I'm losing a lot of torque, so I'm having to use a breaker bar to break this loose. But once I get these broke loose, it'll be easy to whip them in and out with the impact. Okay guys, it's just going to be a whole bunch of repetition until I get all those bolts out, and then I'll get back with you. I just wanted to show you guys what I'm doing. I find it's easiest to access right here. So I'm just moving it to the next hole like this, using this as my leverage. Okay, last one here. So just make sure when you're working with these that you get them well seated into the socket, or a wrench. If you're using a wrench, just make sure they're a real tight fit, so it's easy to get them part way on and strip them, and then you really got a mess on your hands. Okay, so I believe I can just go like this. Well guys, it looks like I might have to drop the spindle. I might have to take the upper nut off so that I can pull the spindle out and give a little more room here. Okay guys, you can see I've got a jack under here now. I just went under the lower ball joint there. And so needle nose pliers do work the best on these cotter pins, but they're pretty rusted in here on this vehicle no matter what I use. I use some slip joint pliers on the ones on the CV axles, but I pretty well had to break them up to get them out anyway. So, and sometimes what I've done is, believe it or not, you can shear a cotter pin off pretty easy. So if all else fails, I've done that before. I've broken off both ends and then just forced the nut until it came off. I got into the eye of it finally. So now what you can do is take the hammer and go like that. There we go. So that one actually came out not bad. Now I'm just going to clean up those threads. Okay, so this nut here is actually a 21mm. Okay, now before we go through all the trouble of putting my tool on here, let's just try to hammer on the sides first. Sometimes the shocks will break that taper joint loose. Okay guys, since shocking it's not working, we're right in a rust belt here in this vehicle. As you can see, it's been fully exposed to that. We're going to use this tool, and this tool is pretty slick. You put that on the end of the stud, and you put this fork up on top of here. And the beauty of it is it doesn't wreck this boot. Now sometimes it's a pain to get on under the boot. There is a place to hammer on the back side of it here for this exact reason. So you can see it's not springing up at all. In fact, I'm going to lower the jack a little. Lower the jack a little. There we go. Now unfortunately I'm going to have to replace this. That's right worn out. But for now I want to see if we have enough room to get that axle free. And I want to do this ideally without disconnecting the caliper here. So get that wire free from there. And there, I've got that axle worked under that flange on the differential now. I don't know how well you can see that. So now I'm just going to hammer right here on the end of the axle just to push it through the hub. So now that I broke that loose, I can work it out of the back side of the hub here. Maybe needs a little more hammer. As I said, rust belt truck here, so. I don't know if I can get it through here if I have to go. I think it's easier if I go out the bottom. And just try not to stretch out your line, your brake hose too much there. So there we go. Old axle is free, and we're gonna just proceed with putting a new one in, or the used one, the good used one in. And it doesn't hurt to put a little grease or something, or some anti-seize on this spline as you're putting it together. So I'm just gonna go grab a little grease, so we'll do just that, and then we'll slap this together. Now you notice the brake line's pretty taut. I've been being careful with that. It wouldn't hurt to have like a bungee strap on this. Actually, I'm just gonna jack that up right now a little more, and that'll help. There, that'll slacken it right up. Now we're good. Just make sure you don't put too much pressure on there. Yeah, I'm just gonna put a couple squirts of grease on here and smear it around with my finger, just so that this doesn't stick in for the next person that has to go in here. Heavy. Just kind of spin it as you're working it into the hub till the spline lines up. Push it back in there, and now we can get this flange up there. And then we'll just get a few of our bolts started. I'm just going to put a little oil on them all so they go in easy. Okay guys, I got a couple started in there just to kind of hold the axle up there in position while I get this worked back into position here. So I'm just going to let the truck down again a little, keep an eye on that brake hose again. So you may have to manhandle this a little. Okay, and now we'll just jack up the vehicle again, will help. Just line this in there as you're jacking it up. Now what I like to do to kind of set that taper in there, and I never put the dust boot back on because I'm going to take this apart again right away and replace that joint. So what I do just to set the taper here is I give it one good smack like that, and now it shouldn't spin as you tighten up that nut. Just make sure you have the threads cleaned and oiled here, and then get your nut going back on, and make sure you put a fresh cotter pin in here too. Okay, I will leave a caption for the torque spec. If you don't have a torque wrench, you want it good and tight. You're not gonna probably over torque that one by hand. So give it a real good snug pull and make sure that taper's set in there. So now I'm just going to work at putting the rest of my 12.12mm bolts up into this flange. And then you want to kind of tighten these down evenly. Pretend it's like a wheel on a car. Either work your way around to do a star pattern or something to get it even. You always want to get all the bolts started into a flange like this before you start tightening any down. Okay guys, I'm just going to use my impact driver to run down those 12mm 12 points, the 6 there, and I'm going to go around and snap them all down and then come back around and kind of torque them up. I'll leave torque specs. I'll recommend you do it by hand if you're not comfortable with an impact, but that's how I'm going to do it with an impact. And again, you can use this trick to rotate it. Put an extension in there, 3/8 extension, and you can also use it to lock it down if you're working by hand. You put it in there, you can lock it against the caliper bracket either direction. So that's a handy thing to know. Okay, so that was the last one there, so I rattled on that one a little. Now I'm going to go around and rattle on all of them a little. I'm actually going to do another bit on that and go around and do the rest. Okay guys, I'm just going to put the axle nut back on, which is 1 3/8 works, or whatever that is in metric. I'll leave a caption. So run that on, and then you got to put the cover back on and put a new cotter pin in there. And I recommend running it on by hand, honestly, even though I'm not. Okay guys, I just have these universal cotter pins here. That one should go in there just perfectly. So yeah, if one of these notches doesn't work, you just keep spinning it until they do, because they're all in a bit different places. And then we'll just wrap those ends around. This one's a little long, but and then the one up here, put a new one in there as well. So there we go guys, that's all there is to changing the CV axle on your 97 to 2003 Ford Expedition or Ford F-150. I just got to pop the wheel back on and torque it up. So thanks a lot for watching Matt's Garage. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have yourself a great day.